Hello again. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about what I consider, in a way, a kind of modern classic. Now, for January, I was trying to come up with ideas as far as like some sort of theme. And for January, there's not too many that immediately came to mind for me. So what I was thinking of is like, okay, so, we just get out of the holiday season in January, and what do we come into? We come into a new year, and we have all these different types of resolutions, and most of them are towards some sort of self-improvement. And one of the most popular is, of course, like fitness goals. Like for a lot of folks, like myself included, you have this idea of like weight loss goals. And aside from like, weight loss or fitness, and I'll explain my thought process as to like why those are like two separate things here in a second, but a lot of it is reinvention. Like a lot of the time we go into a new year imagining that we are going to do better than we did last year. Or at the very least, we're going to try. We're going to try our hardest. And sometimes when we try to achieve those goals, sometimes we go about it the wrong way and we make mistakes. And I think the Nutty Professor is really good because it holds up so well over time. A lot of the problems and the frustrations that the main character has are problems that even modern audiences, contemporary audiences, I should say, can really find themselves also facing. And this is something like the main focus of it is not just who he is appearance-wise. It is a literal way of it's a science fiction comedy about this man who literally reinvents himself. So there will be some spoilers if you haven't seen this. It's one of the better Eddie Murphy comedies from the 90s. I highly recommend it. This is not so much like a review so much as is like my recommendations that I've made in the past. So I just want to put that out there. If you have not seen it, go into this video just with the understanding that I think it's something that's worth your time. It's a bit of a time capsule, but it's still very relevant, in a few ways. And I think it also presents a character that is reflective of a lot of people and a lot of their struggles. So once again, bit of a spoiler alert, but anyways, I do highly recommend seeing this Eddie Murphy comedy. So what it is that there is this scientist. I want to say immediately like geneticist, because his major project at the time of the film is that he is coming up with a method of resequencing. That's the phrase that they use repeatedly. That's not what happens in the film, but like it's resequencing human DNA to eliminate certain problematic factors that make people that contribute to where some people are more prone to gaining weight versus like others. And this is someone. So the main character is Sherman Klump. He's this brilliant geneticist. And unfortunately, he faces a plethora of struggles. I think that's something that a lot of 30-somethings can identify with, is that this is someone who is very much like, okay, he's done the hard work, he's established himself in his career field, but he still has certain other frustrations. Sherman Klump is, and if you've never seen the film, and you look at the thumbnail, he's a very big man. He's a very big guy, and being a 90s film, they like this is I'm not entirely sure this is a film that could be made even like nowadays. God knows Melissa McCarthy tries, but I mean, just it doesn't have the same resonance. She just assumes that falling down repeatedly just is funny. Anyways, all right, not here to throw shade. Here to talk about the Nutty Professor. So he is he has his doctorate, and he is successful professionally. However, like I said, as many sort of professional 30-somethings, he has had to either put other goals on either like the back burner, or they just haven't come very easily to him. And part of it is, unfortunately, because of his appearance. So he meets Jada Pinkett. I believe she was simply Jada Pinkett at that time. And, he has this idea like, hey, maybe I could try, maybe I could try to ask her out. Maybe I can try to start up a relationship with her. And in the midst of trying to, just like, Sherman knows that, because like for a lot of us, especially like when dating is never easy, even under the best circumstances. But I think, for obvious reasons, he kind of feels like she's out of his league, and it's not just romantic frustrations. He does have professional frustrations as well. I'm assuming the dean of his department. I know a lot of movies would just like to have like, oh, the dean and the president of the college are two, like they're one and the same, but no, they're typically not. And so like, but his dean, not going to sugarcoat it, he harasses him. He openly like insults him just based on his weight. He has these protracted like episodes of just making fun of him, even though like it's clear that like apparently his school is like failing, and I guess he takes a lot of that frustration out on Sherman because he's a big target, and he's an easy target, unfortunately. And so on these two fronts, his professional career, where it's like you could tell he's passionate about his work, but his professional environment is like you can really like see this, and sort of like now you can sort of see like, okay, like could you get away with that like nowadays? And the answer is like, in an ideal world, I would say like, oh no, you definitely can't. But like, no, there are probably like toxic workplace environments in all areas of working life. And unfortunately, not going to get too political here, but like fat phobia or fat shaming is still one of the most prevalent types of harassment, socially. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Not going to spend any more time with regards to like my further thoughts on that. But it's true. Like his professional life isn't quite where he wants it to be. His romantic life is definitely not where he wants it to be. And so he decides to go to start a fitness journey. He starts to work out. There's this really great scene at the very beginning of the film where he does a workout montage. And at first is, he's just trying to get up this like multi tiers of like steps. And he's trying to get up these steps at a very specific pace. And, he's got himself winded. He's trying to, be at the gym. He's trying to, lift weights, but he gets distracted by his like urge to snack. He tries acupuncture, because I don't know if that's a real thing or not. Like, I know that acupuncture is a practice that is like centuries and centuries old. What I'm saying is like, I don't know how much of that actually like works. I've never tried it myself, so I can't really attest to the validity of it. But it's in this montage he does a number of things. He tries lifting weights, he tries cardio. In one of the classes that he takes, it's too much. When we all start out, it's too much. But you can see from one part of this montage to the very end, he's not it's not an exact difference of like night and day, but he's starting to get into the euphoria of progress. And what I mean by that is that the euphoria of progress is like when you can sense and feel that certain things that were immensely challenging for you when you're starting on your fitness goals and your fitness journey, that they're not as difficult anymore. So, and he, we do see him make progress. He's tackling those steps. It's still hard, but it's a little bit easier every single day. And the aerobics class, he's not as easily winded. And you can see and you can see from the people that are training with him, it's like, yeah, they're giving him support. They're giving him that big boost of confidence and like that. He's working a speed bag at, because a lot of gyms do have the boxing corners where you can work on the weight bags or you can work on speed bags and like that. And you can tell he's making a lot of progress, And then he does go out on a date with Jada Pinkett, who's just, I don't remember her first name in the film, but she's Miss Purdy, Purdy. It's like, oh, okay, so she's she's the love interest. The quintessential love interest. She's a very beautiful woman. She also has similar prospects in academia. So okay, there's some overlap. Play your cards right. Maybe this can work out. So what happens is they go to a nightclub, and you have this comedian, a young Dave Chappelle, and he plays a Def Comedy Jam comedian from back in the day, where all of it was just trash talking the audience, and he sees Sherman, and Sherman, oh man, he tears him apart, unfortunately, just because, okay, all of the obvious sort of jokes, he just hurls them at him, and it just, he becomes the laughing stock of the club that evening. So that's a big letdown. He tries to rebound. He's like, hey, you know what? That date didn't really work out. But, if I was to invite you over for my family's Sunday night dinner, would you be interested? And I think Miss Purdy is she's not really interested. Not so much that okay, she just wants to put it out there and just well, I don't think we'd just be compatible. But considering how horrible of a time he had on the first date, she says, you know what? Yeah, I'll take him up on the offer, And so the second date is with Sherman's family. And Sherman's family is they're very loud. They're very jovial. They're the dad in particular. The dad is very, very lewd. He's very lewd and crude. He's very blue collar. Brother, because they mentioned that is his brother. The scene with the Klump family is, it's a standout of the movie because Eddie Murphy plays every single role. Anywho, but and he plays them all particularly well. He can play this brash, obnoxious, overbearing father. He can play this very coy but very joyous, mother. And he can play grandma, no filter. Every sentence that comes out of her mouth is TMI, And so they go on the date, and it just isn't, oh my God, it just isn't a good first impression. Everybody in the family is really invasive. They make assumptions oh, you brought her over for dinner, so that means that y'all are getting married. The brother tries to put some moves on Miss Purdy, and yeah, that ain't happening. So it's just for Miss Purdy, it's just it's very awkward, painfully so. The night does not end well, and to Sherman, it's an absolute disaster. And so he is at the end of his rope, and he just he takes the partial solution of his experiment. When I say solution, I mean this concoction. He takes it in the hopes that okay, if only I was physically different, my life would absolutely be better. And so he takes this formula that he's made, and it transforms him, Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde style. into he's a completely new man, and his metabolism is completely reconfigured. His body changes into a much more athletic build, and he is just this is the paradise that he's always wanted. And when he's in, like, obviously in this new form, nobody recognizes him, so he comes up with a new persona, and that persona is Buddy Love. Buddy Love is very handsome, he's very charismatic, and he goes on a date with Miss Purdy, and he makes a really big impression on Miss Purdy. And so Sherman thinks to himself, like, okay, if I could just keep this this act going, then maybe I can find some new happiness in my life. But the thing about it is that Buddy Love is not simply physically different. He is very, very, like, personality-wise, he is the polar opposite of Sherman. Sherman is he's very mild. He's very, he's very soft-spoken. He's not assertive. He's not confident. Now, Buddy Love, the exact opposite. He is way overconfident. He is obnoxious. He is very, very, like, dangerously aggressive. And not only that, but his internal chemistry is such to where, like, it actually puts both of them in jeopardy. Whenever Sherman takes the formula, his internal chemistry is ramped up to the 11th degree. And this puts them both at risk. So Sherman has to come to some type of resolution, literally within himself, as to how he wants to, the terms of how he wants to live his life. And this film, it touches on so many things. Like, I'm not going to make this a hello again. I'm not going to make this a sort of like a story time, like I sometimes do. But it's something you can see so many like there's so many parts, like the struggles and the difficulties of your fitness journey. Now, in the beginning, I said that there's there's a very specific reason why I'm using that phrasing: fitness journey versus like weight loss journey. So, like, I started my own what started out as a weight loss journey as of last year, and I did make a lot of progress, because I was not myself. I was not happy with the way that I was. COVID, these last couple of years have been really hard for a lot of people, just like, and so I was no exception with my limited activity and not going out to as many places. Like, I started to change in ways that I did not like. So as of the beginning of 2022, I started my own weight loss journey, and I had some really good progress. And then, just starting into 2023, my goals have changed, and they've more or less become more comprehensive, like fitness. And there's so many ways, like, when, like, you're just not conscientious of, like, when you're trying to, because the way that I'm not a medical professional. I'm not attempting to give advice. I'm just, like, recalling and retelling my experiences here. So don't take any of this as an attempt at advice. But when you're starting out and you're counting calories and you're trying to make meal plans and things like that, there's difficulties where, like, everything that is in front of you as a person who is trying to reach some type of calorie deficit, like most successful restaurant chains, and even most, like, it's just most eateries in general, they're, oh, man, it is so hard. It is so hard to just cut back, and it's so hard to just really, like, rein in all of your favorites, because you've kind of gotten yourself into a routine over the course of your life. It's like, I really love these things, and these are like, these are like my comfort foods, these are like my go-to, these are my regular meal options, things like that. And so, just like for Sherman, you see that it's like, okay, I'm trying to weigh my options a lot better. There's a scene with his family where, and this happens in so many families, y'all, like, okay, like, yeah, it's a it's a family gathering. It's we're trying to have a cozy, comfortable meal, and so you're not supposed to think about portions. And I find like so often, I find myself like if I found myself turning those times where I would either meet up with some friends or like family members. Okay, these are going to be like cheat days, and everybody asks you, like everybody kind of like probes in the exact same way, because Sherman's mother says like, Sherman, I made all this food, is that how you're going to eat? Because he has one chicken breast and he removed the skin because he says that's where most of the calories are. And then it's just like once it's out there, everybody feels like they kind of have to chime in and things like that. Like luckily I like when I was like doing like mine, when I first started mine, no one really gave me that kind of interrogation about what I was eating or what I wasn't eating. But so many families do, like especially like because if you're meeting everybody, like people don't want to think that they have to act differently around you, and I completely understand that. But more often than not, it's like if people ask, you just tell them the truth. It's not a bad thing. I just want to cut back on some of the calories. Yeah, but look at all this great food that we made. It's just like, yeah, just without malice, without intending to. Yeah, sometimes friends and family sabotage you on your like, your diet goals and things like that. And then there's also like, that montage that showed him as, like he's getting into a fitness routine, He's being very realistic. He's just trying to do this, not just like for his appearance, but also, for his own like personal health, like too, And I wish that we got to see a little bit more of that journey where he's just like at the gym and he's doing his thing and like that, and people are getting to know him. And there are a lot of, groups, like when you go to like a gym or a wellness club or, things like that, there are a lot of people that are very, very positive. And there was that one scene where, he's doing an aerobics workout and they get to the end of the workout and, he's not winded. He's not gasping for breath. And everybody is cheering Sherman on and they're giving him high fives, making him feel great about himself. And that is more often than not, like when you first start going to like the gym, more often than not, the surprising thing is, like, everybody's just there to mind their own business, Yeah, there might be some people that, like, give you the eye or just, like, give you less than friendly looks or things like that. But, for me, I put the blinders on, like, immediately. And I started out with baby steps, started out easy, and that's how it was with Sherman in the film, too. He wasn't just going all the way up those steps Rocky style at the very beginning. He had to, work his way up to it. And in the course of the movie, we also know that like this massive progress that he made was only in the span of 4 or 5 days, because on Monday he asked Miss Purdy out. On Friday they went on their date. So I was like, oh, okay. So I guess he made all this like really great progress in 4 to 5 days, I guess. So whatever, fine. It's 90s, whatever, just 90s editing. But it's very succinct. But you can tell like, okay, he's making strides. But when he has all of these setbacks, and like when you're on your fitness journey, like you have these setbacks. You can either plateau or you put weight back on, things like that. And that's where you really have to, stare down your demons and, try to stay motivated. And unfortunately, there are some, that there's some folks on their journey, they when they get discouraged, it's not so much as to stay the course, but they go to extremes. Like you see them that, like, okay, they don't go for a standard calorie deficit, just shaving like 200 calories off a day. They only take in like 200 calories a day, or like that's in the extreme. That's extremely dangerous and unhealthy. And with that calorie deficit, they'll also be like they will be going full throttle on the treadmill. They'll be lifting all like all the way that they can with a maximum number of reps. And yeah, you can, like, okay, yeah, if you put your body under harsh conditions, yeah, you can see extreme results, but you're also going to get extreme rebound, like, as well. And there's countless stories online about, like, people that happens to, you know. But that's the thing, like, Sherman seeks out the shortcut, because we all do. When we get frustrated, when we don't reach our goals, whatever they may be, it might be romantically, it might be fitness, it might be finances, it might be education. Like, when we don't get the results that we desire and we get discouraged, people get desperate. And when you are desperate, you know, things are not going to go smoothly, unfortunately, you know, and there undoubtedly will be consequences, you know. And that is, like, you know, Sherman, it wasn't so much that he saw, like, in the moment he saw an easy answer. He wasn't trying to cheat himself or anything. That he thought, okay, I'll take this, I'll take this formula and I will be the one to prove whether or not it works. And then maybe if it benefits me, maybe it can benefit all of humanity. So, like, this was not done with even like oh, I'll be world famous and I'll patent this and I'll be a billionaire or even more. You know, like, he was just doing this as an attempt to improve his life, to change it for the better. And that's why I say, like, y'all, that, like, this is you see this as like a comedy, but in so many ways, it's very relevant. It's very on the nose, you know. And this is a story about reinvention and finding balance and equilibrium with, you know, with the life that you are living, and just being happy with the person that you are. So yeah, if you have not seen The Nutty Professor, yeah, like, and the thing is, like, you know, the thing I also have to mention, and I'll try to wrap it up here, like, fairly quick, because this is one of my longer videos, but yeah, like, you know, for those in the know, like, yeah, there's a lot of, like, crude humor. There's a lot of, like, I usually don't watch a lot of comedies that, like, go for, like, just yeah, like blue humor. I don't. And yet I understand why it's here. I understand why, for comic purposes, the contrast between Sherman and most of his family, it works so well. The contrast between Sherman and the obnoxious but comedic personality of Buddy Love, it works so well, you know. And this is a very optimistic sort of, like, comedy. You know, like, it's a new take. The original Nutty Professor was a Jerry Lewis movie where it was a Nutty Professor who's, like, the assembly of every single nerd stereotype in, like, the 50s and 60s that you sometimes even see today, actually. And then he becomes one of the Rat Pack. Essentially, he becomes Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, you know, the Jerry Lewis version of Sammy Davis Jr., you know, like, very suave, very smooth. But when they had this idea and they took it to the 90s, they didn't make it a paint by the numbers, like a hand turkey. It's like, okay, so we're just going to make it to where Eddie Murphy is just this goofy, like, nerd, like, that we saw in Spider-Man, like, 3, like Jamie Foxx. You know, like, and then he takes his you know, this scientific formula, and then he becomes, like, super smooth and, like, you know, suave. They took a character that a majority of society can, like, look at and say, like, I've had those struggles. People make fun of me, or I feel uncomfortable with myself, and things like that. And you have this character that can be seen by so many people as, like, yeah, those are my struggles too. But the film also, like, in its own way, you know, it's not a morality play, but in its own way, it says, like, you know, you know, like, do yourself a favor and don't go for the easy solution, because you'll probably just end up hurting yourself. And that's why I think, like, as a classic, you know, it works, because a lot of the themes are fairly universal, and they just, you know, resonate with a lot of people, you know. And yeah, there's still a lot of like there's like crude humor or like every now and then you have like some gross out humor, but it's still fairly intelligent. You know, it still works very well, I think. So, if you have not seen The Nutty Professor, I do highly recommend it. I think it is a very good movie to see in January. No matter what your resolution may be, even though like most people is like, okay, we try to pursue a fitness goal or a weight loss goal. You know, fitness goal being like you want to be just more able-bodied. It could be like in your arms, it could be your chest or your legs, or yeah, even your core and in your abdomen. But like with weight loss, like I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to lose X amount of pounds. Because they're not always the same thing. Because it's up to you. And your success can be defined how you see fit. There you go. So, thank you very much for for listening in on me with one of my audio only movie ninja sort of like recommendations and listening to me share my thoughts about The Nutty Professor. It's much better than you might think it is if you've never seen it, and if you have, you know what, watch it again. You know, just it's a great film. So, thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.